We'll have Ellie present, and then the food will be here, and then everybody can eat. So, woo!
All right, guys, I'm just going to talk about how I ended up here and how I left for the past 10 years.
Ellie, if I may, are you sharing the screen?
I'm not sure.
Okay, get that going.
Nowhere.
Okay.
All right, now we're sharing the screen, so we can continue. Okay, so I was born out in Colorado, in Steamboat Springs, which is where that little dot is. And if we zoom in a little bit, up there in the mountains, not too far from Denver. When I lived there, it was a really, really tall town or small town. There was like no Walmart. There was just a tiny little grocery store and a bunch of ski bums. And you had to like drive to Denver to go shopping or drive down to Grand Junction was one of the bigger cities near us. So it was a really small town and I lived basically right on the ski mountain. My dad was a chef on the ski mountain and my mom worked at the resort. And not a whole lot to do there, except for if you like winter things. So there's lots of mountains, more mountains. They have, the reason that it's called Steamboat is because of their hot springs. So that's one of their small amounts of water is their hot springs. And then the Yampa River runs right downtown. But if you want to go get boats, you got to go to Chuck E. Cheese and ride the little boat rides. So all of my mom's family is from down here in Detroit area. And my dad, he only has one sister and my grandparents. And at the time, my dad's sister lived in Grand Junction and my grandparents lived down here in Corpus Christi. So we didn't really see them too much and we didn't really see a lot of family very often. So my grandpa on my mom's side was like, you guys need to move back to Michigan and you need to be close to your family. And my dad was like, well, I'm not living in Detroit because I'm from Colorado and I'm not living in a city. And so we moved to Gaylord, Michigan, which is an hour south of the Mackinac Bridge. And it's also about an hour away from Petoskey, which is like Michigan, or an hour away from Alpena, which is Lake Huron. So I got to be surrounded by all the Great Lakes. So this is where I grew up, spent most of my childhood here. We moved to Gaylord when I was 5. My house, basically on Otsego Lake. The reason that we chose Gaylord to be close to family, even though they were all down in Detroit, is that my grandpa's cottage, my great uncle's cottage, my other uncle's cottage, and this is the house that we bought. So they had, my grandparents had lake frontage, we didn't, so we got the benefit of living on the lake, but not paying lakefront property. And all summer long, someone was in at least one of these cottages and a large majority of the winter. So I got to see my grandparents all the time, my great uncle, and he had 10 kids and a couple of them were right around my age. So I got to see my cousins all the time. In this cottage, they sold it when I was in high school, so no longer have it, that's why it's in yellow. But they had 2 kids that are also close to my age and my brother's age. So we just spent all summer running around with all of our cousins out on the lake. And this is our 4 boats that was always on our property. So my uncle's boat, my grandpa's boat, my other uncle's boat, and another uncle's boat. And that's how I spent my summers, just on the lake, on the boats. Then when I was in kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade, my grandparents took my cousins and I on Disney cruises. And that was highlight of those years for sure. It was on the Disney Magic and the Disney Wonder, which were two cruise ships basically. This is the Disney Magic and then the Disney Wonder looks basically the same, but they were brand new at the time. They were 1 year old when I got to go on them. And just was absolutely, and I was in love with the boat. My brother and my cousins, they were like in love with being with Mickey and Minnie and the whole amenities of Disney cruise, the Disney part, and I was actually just in awe of the boat. And so they gave out trading cards on the Disney cruises. And like most of them were like Mickey and Minnie, and like you could go get them signed by the different characters on the boat, or like different islands that you went to, there were different trading cards. Well, there was one trading card that was the engine room. And I absolutely just loved this trading card. It was the coolest one, I thought, of all of them. And I like cherished it and I kept it forever. And it's still in my room. The engine room on the Disney cruise. So this is also during that time period that when I was still like third grade-ish. So this is me on my grandpa's boat. And then riding on my aunt and uncle's boat. I learned to ski when I was 5 and I was so proud of myself. And that's a big part of my life, still ski all the time, all summer long. But I also joined the swim team. And that was just the biggest deal to me. The only thing that I cared about basically was swimming. And I wanted to do it year round, but in Gaylord, they only had a winter program. So I would just like make basically my own swim team during the summer and try to convince all my friends to swim with me at the pool, lap swim as a little 8-year-old, trying to convince a bunch of kids to lap swim with me. Didn't work out so well, but it was fun. As I got a little bit older, now we're talking like 4th through middle school age. Michael Phelps, he was swimming at U of M. And well, not really at U of M, he was swimming for Club Wolverine. But to me, all I cared about was that he was swimming at U of M. And this is really what drove me to deciding that I wanted to go to U of M. I wanted to swim at U of M like Michael Phelps. And I really didn't know that he didn't swim at U of M, but that was good enough. He was in Ann Arbor. It was the same thing to me. I was also, this started like becoming reasons why I wanted to be an engineer. I thought fast skin swimsuits were just an amazing piece of technology, and I wanted to understand everything about them and how they worked. I owned my own, and I would like just like splash it with water and see how it was hydrophobic. And so just really this started my desire to understand fluids and also to go to U of M. I also at the time was still swimming all the time. And we started like my group of swimmers that were like around my age, we were all pretty good for the area. And we started breaking records and moving on to more advanced swim meets that like we would have to travel a lot farther than the rest of the people on our swim team were going to. I also thought I was a pretty cool scientist. All my birthdays, I would just ask for science kits or just literally like baking soda and vinegar and batteries and wire and just weird stuff. So this is me making slime. Probably did this at least once a month, if not more. Was just making slime with my friends, convinced them that was the most interesting thing to do on a weekend. I learned to slalom when I was 12 and haven't gone back to two skiing since. And so this is a picture of my mom's side of the family. These are all only first cousins and aunts and uncles. So some of my reasons also for wanting to become an engineer. My dad, who was not an engineer, was a chef, but he was a Mr. Fix-It. Always would have random scraps of metal and just anything in the garage, and anything that was broken could be fixed. Whether or not it would look good again didn't matter. It would now work. My grandpa, who had passed away by the time we took this picture, but through my childhood, he really influenced me. He was an engineer for Ford, And he was also always a Mr. Fix-It, but he always made it look pretty. And his biggest thing was, if it's broken, the first thing you should do is take it apart slowly, understand what other pieces are going to, see if you can see something that's broken. But most of the time, you just need to clean it and put it back together and it will work again. And 9 times out of 10, that works. And so that's still a philosophy that I use today, especially with the PhD. If something's kind of broken, maybe you need to take it apart, clean a connector, put it back together, and oftentimes it still works. And then all of these other arrows, these are all other engineers in my family. So my aunt and uncle, they work for Dodge. And then these guys, they work for another motor company, but they basically just build motors. And then these two work for Ford. So I had a lot of automotive influences in my life. And so they used to also like help me with my school projects. I wouldn't necessarily want the help, but it would just happen. So I'd be at home and like one project I had in 7th grade was we had to build a balsa wood bridge that you wanted it to be the lightest that it could be while also being the strongest. So I don't really remember exactly how it was graded, but it was something along the lines of if you got points off for it being heavy, but you wanted it also to hold a lot of weight. So there was a way to maximize that. So I came home with this project and start fiddling around with it on my own. And my dad starts getting a little bit involved. And then we bring in my grandpa, then we bring in my aunts and uncles. And now we've got 10 of us in the living room building a bunch of different balsa wood bridges and testing them and finding out the correct designs. We brought out graph paper and we're cutting them to precise angles. And we ended up having basically a little competition in our living room between all my aunts and uncles. And now I'm no longer doing the project, but just everyone else is doing my project. And nevertheless, I ended up winning this competition at our school. And then, so we also had a neighbor that was also an engineer. And he was an aerospace engineer. So he used to build balsa wood planes and model planes and would fly them down at the lake. But he was also an influence to us. He was really smart. And one time we were chopping down trees in our yard and he comes over and he's like, do you know where the tree's gonna land? And we're like, approximately here. And he's like, no, we're gonna find out exactly where the tip of this tree is gonna land, because we had a lot of trees on our property. They're all very tall. They're like 80-foot tall. So he comes out with a protractor and a plumb bob on it. And he's like looking up at the top of the tree and using angles and trigonometry to figure out how tall these trees were. And then would map that out on the ground and figure out exactly where the tip of this tree was going to end up. And he was spot on. And I was just amazed. And I was like, that's the coolest profession. I want to be just like these guys. They're so smart. They know exactly what they're doing. Turns out they probably didn't, but some things worked out. So then now we're moving in towards high school. At this point, I really started focusing in on swimming, and that was the only thing I wanted to do. I wanted to go to the Olympics to swim. I wanted to swim for U of M. And I was doing everything I could to be recruited to swim, but I had a little bit of a problem. I'm only 5 foot tall. So it's really hard to be recruited to swim for a top-notch college when you're only 5 foot tall. You can be swimming basically the same speeds as everybody else, all the same times, but they're gonna take the person that's 5'6" over the person that's 5 foot because they have more potential. So I still really wanted to swim for college. I was breaking high school records, I was breaking pool records, and then I was going to U of M swim camps in the summer. So that's really where I started to like see what U of M had to offer now as a little bit older, really getting to know the campus a bit. And, but I was not getting recruited to swim at U of M. I was getting recruited to swim at a couple other places, but not at U of M. But I also started doing triathlons when I was 16. So these are pictures from my first half Ironman. And I just absolutely fell in love with this sport as well. And I really now started to is swimming better than swimming, biking, and running. I was having a hard toss up, but still just really wanted to swim for college. Then I went to Tech Day at U of M, which is a, I don't know if they still do this event, but it's an event that where you could come in as a junior, senior, and get to like 2 or 3 different departments and do some like activities with other people that are also wanting to go to U of M or looking at going to U of M. While I was at Tech Day, the 3 departments that I chose to go tour was mechanical department, the name department, and it was at the time AOSS department, but I think it's called CLASP now. So we toured those, but I wanted to do naval architecture. I decided that that's the only one that I actually cared about going to tour, but we had to pick 3. While I was on that tour, I met another person that only wanted to do naval architecture. And she was wearing a varsity jacket that showed that she was a swimmer. So we started talking. And while we were talking, we were both just questioning why during a flip turn, they always tell you have to push off on your side. All the Olympic swimmers, they push off on their side off the wall and it's supposedly faster. And we're like, how does it matter? Your whole body is submerged underwater. It's the same amount of drag. Why does it matter if you swim on your side versus swimming on your stomach? And this person that I ended up talking to is Lisa Bergeron, who ended up coming here also. But we just were fascinated by this topic. And then we became friends from that. And then would just text each other about weird swimming related hydrodynamic problems that we didn't understand. And she was a year older than me. So then when she actually started coming to U of M, I would like text her every day. I was like, did you learn about this in class yet? Have you figured it out? Have you talked to a professor? Do you know why this matters? So this really started, or we really started to like see how naval architecture, how people like-minded in naval architecture could be found at U of M. But now my senior year, I've been recruited by a couple schools to swim. And I got into U of M, but will not be swimming for them. I talked to the coach, they're like, yeah, you can maybe walk on if you want to try, but you may or may not make it, but you're not gonna get any scholarships from it. From Florida Tech, I was gonna get scholarships to swim. I could do, they had ocean engineering, which is like a division, one of their concentrations was naval architecture. So I was like, cool, I could do naval architecture here. I could swim for them, but it's not U of M. I didn't really have any other reason besides it's just not U of M. And it was far away. I'd have to fly there. I didn't have a lot of money. So I was paying for my own college if I wanted to come home. Each time I came home, that was a plane flight. But the real reason was that I had to choose between swimming or U of M. And at this point, I also started talking to the president of the triathlon team at U of M. And I didn't really understand the difference between like club sports and varsity sports. I knew that club sports weren't a varsity sport, but they seemed a lot more prestigious than they actually are. So I was like, cool, I could actually be on a club sport and it's going to be basically the same thing as swimming for a varsity team. It's not, but it was awesome. So I ended up coming here to U of M. And I participated in a lot of things in my undergrad. So first thing is I did research with the archaeology department. I was doing research in the Museum of Natural History, and we were looking at the Alpena Amberley Ridge, which is like a higher up part underneath Lake Huron that connects Alpena to Amberley, Canada. So there's a ridge that connects Alpena to Canada underneath Lake Huron. They hypothesized at the time that during the last ice age, there was enough water in the glaciers that that ridge was actually exposed and there was caribou hunting going on this ridge. And then during the melting of the ice age, it melted slow enough that it didn't disturb the underneath or the bottom of Lake Huron. So we were looking for different hunting structures. Like this is actually one found at the bottom of Lake Huron. They're quartz rocks. There's no quartz in this area. So these rocks had to be moved. They're shaped in a triangle, which is kind of suspicious. There's no real flows that would move these quartz rocks that already shouldn't be there into this formation. And then, so they proposed that it was a hunting blind. So what I was doing was I was looking at soil samples from inside the hunting blind versus outside the hunting blind and seeing if there were differences in the rocks. So we could see if they were making arrowheads down there. So there were, if you could see a large sample of chert, a specific rock that they used to make arrowheads, then that, and just only a few feet away, there wasn't as many samples of chert, then that could, they proposed that that would mean that there were arrowheads being made inside the hunting blind. And that's what we found. So that was a really cool research project that I did in undergrad. And so I would encourage you guys, even if you were interested in research, you don't have to stick to engineering or naval architecture. You can find research elsewhere too. I was part of the water ski team. I was okay at water skiing, but it took a lot of time. But I was really just in it for riding on the boats. And I also was on the cycling team, still am. Went to all of the launches of the at Marionette Marine that the Naval Architecture Department would send students up to. We'd get to go watch the launching of the LC's, whatever ship this is.
Yeah.
LCS, yes. So I encourage you guys, whenever there's opportunities that arise that the Naval Architecture Department is sending students on, take advantage of those. They're once in a lifetime opportunities, and they're super cool. They're talking points during interviews. I was on the human-powered submarine team. We went to both Carderock where we competed down there, and we went to England. Great opportunities to be able to travel and just to see engineering at work, learning fiberglass, mechanical systems, learning how to machine. Another trip that I took with the Naval Architecture Department was actually for a different class. It was a ocean engineering class where they went on the, or not ocean engineering, it was a oceanography class where we got to spend the night on a old submarine and then go out on a NOAA boat the next day. But they needed more students to do it, so they asked the Naval Architecture Department if anyone wanted to go. So we got to do that. Went to SNAMI quite a few years. Also was on the Nordic ski team, which me and a couple of friends started here. So again, if there's clubs that you would like to see that aren't here yet, start it. Make it, you'll find people that have the same interests as you. So I was also part of the triathlon team. And we had a running joke at the time that whenever we competed, that we had the most naval architects at a triathlon. So there were 3 of us at this one. We the most female naval arcs ever at a triathlon, and then 4 of us on the team at the time. It's pretty cool. So I also had some internships abroad. So one of my internships is I worked at a repair refit shipyard in Barcelona, where I helped paint yachts. So this is the yacht that I'm painting, and this is it sailing later when towards the end of my internship. And then I was the only person at the company that knew how to do AutoCAD. So they had never used AutoCAD before. They did all of their hand drawings, and I came in and they asked me my skills, and I said I'm okay at AutoCAD and Rhino and all these 3D softwares. And they're like, great, none of us know how to use it. You get to do everything. So I became the CADer for everything, and so I had to CAD up. We didn't have drawings, we only had hand drawings of all of these ships. So I had to transfer the hand drawings into CAD, make a model, and then now we repair or refit them with something else. So one of my projects was putting in the drawings for the ship and then redesigning a new deck for the ship. And that has a lot of different cambers to it. And it's not easy to go from a hand drawing to a 3D model and then back to a printed drawing for them to actually make the designs. We just had this, we had a dock and marina. So I got to see a lot of different boats come in, and I, being from the United States, spoke the best English. So, and this was an international port. So we had people coming from all over the world. And I was frequently the one talking to the customers because that was the common language was English. So I would have to understand what all these people coming in would need, and then relay that to my bosses as to if we could actually manage to do these repairs and refits. So these were my bosses. It was a really small, close-knit group of people. We had like the four upper management and probably about 20 other workers in this shipyard. So it was super fun. And I got to do a lot of other activities, go sightseeing, eat a lot of great food. Then the next year, I did the internship program that the Naval Architecture Department was putting on, pairing with the Norwegian school and a school in South Korea, where we went to Hyundai Heavy Industries for a couple weeks and worked in their shipyard, but really we just like learned about all the different parts of their shipyard for a few weeks. And then we had a culture exchange for like 2 weeks where we got to, we did a lot of sightseeing and seeing a lot of the culture. And we were also at the time helping the Korean students with their English. And so we went to, we worked at Hyundai Heavy Industries. We got to visit Samsung. We couldn't take any pictures in the shipyard, so this is the only one that I kind of sneakily got. But it's a huge shipyard. And at the time, they were putting out a ship about every 3 to 4 days. Just an incredible rate to be putting, and they were big ships. We got to tour inside an LNG tanker, and just being inside with those tanks is incredible. They're way bigger than you would ever expect. I felt like my whole house could fit inside it, plus extra room. It was a great time. Just take the opportunities that this department provides. They're incredible. So now what do I do? So I did all that for undergrad. I got into the SUGS program, was always going to do SUGS. And then while I was doing that, I was also doing research to pay for my master's year. And I was convinced to stay for my PhD. And I worked on quite a few projects in my PhD. So one of them that I worked on was this sub-off. So we coated it with a super hydrophobic surface. We wanted to see if towing it in the tow tank would have less drag with the super hydrophobic surface than if than without the coating. So the real reasons that this is like, you guys are like, oh yeah, super hydrophobic surface is going to have less drag. But because it's a round surface, the way that you create the super hydrophobic is you have an air layer. And because of buoyancy, all of your air is going to end up mostly at the top. And now you're going to have a rough surface on the bottom, because it's the way that you trap the air is by actually having a rougher surface than a smooth surface. So we wanted to see if we could actually maintain that air layer in around a circular body, and if we could actually produce less drag. And we did. We were able to reduce the drag by about 20%. And we were able to keep the surface from not wetting for about 8 hours to 10 hours, which that's not going to work for a submarine, or that's not going to work for a real ship, but that could work for a missile or a small unmanned craft that's only doing a short duration. Then I also worked on some biofilm. So we were studying the effects of drag of biofilm on a ship hull. We would grow biofilm on a plate and then test its drag. And let me tell you, working with living things is the most frustrating research you could ever imagine. Some things you understand how to produce these biofilm surfaces, and then all of a sudden they just slide off. And you're like, why did that happen? And it only happens 1 out of 10. And that's 10 weeks wasted of the whole biofilm just ripping off and flowing downstream. Or sometimes they just, like, you would have 5 that consistently grew, and then 1 that just didn't grow the same way at all. And you don't really understand why. But we were able to actually get some pretty good results and some pretty neat results. And we were comparing actually the compliance of the surface. So we were looking at how much the drag came from its rough shape versus how much it came from it wiggling. Like, so if you think about if you had a flag in the air, the wiggling flag is producing a lot more drag than if you were to have a rigid flag that aligned with the flow, right? So we would scan these and then print them rigidly and then test its drag. And about 50% came from its wiggliness of the surface, which we thought was a pretty interesting finding. And then these two projects are ones that I'm currently working on. So this one here, this is multi-phase mixing in a channel. So we're looking at how much mixing from channel B to channel A and channel A to B, how much occurs, and if we add gas, how much that mixing rate changes. The other project is, we're just getting started here, is a elongated football shape. Professor Dowling, he talked about this when he gave his presentation. We're gonna be testing this down in the LCC. So there, at MHL, we have a small scale version of this. And it's 1/14 the size of the real thing. So the real test section is 3 meters by 3 meters. You can easily walk around in it. And this model is gonna be 3 meters long. So it's gonna be pretty big, pretty expensive, pretty nice project. Have any questions?
Where and what is the LCC?
So it's the large cavitation channel. It's down in Memphis. And it's a water channel that circulates water.
Thank you.
Have you ever solved the kick turning to the side?
Yeah, so that has to do with the effects. So when you swim on your side, as like fish do, or when you're dolphin kicking like you do for off flip turn, the way that you propel yourself is from vortices, right? So you're shedding vortices, and if you push off this way, you have the effects of the surface and the effects of the bottom of the pool, which limit the size of your vortices. Now, if you push off on your side, it's much more of an infinite domain, and your vortices can be much bigger, and they're not affected by the surface and the bottom.
For that research you did with the super hydrophobic like surface, like you said you reduced drag by 20%. I feel like that's pretty considerable amount. So like, is there someone else doing more research with that going forward, or is like, are you able to like sell that like intellectual like data? Or?
So yeah, there's actually a lot of research still going on with that. People are trying to figure out how to make it. So we actually found a way to produce the surface before people were producing it in like small scale, really like inch by inch or 3 inch by inch. We were able to produce it on a meter long body, which that was a big feat to be able to produce this coating. But to make it now to coat something even larger, full scale, you've got to scale that up. This is like a lot of the materials department here at U of M has been working on this. Not so much us in the Naval Art department, but yeah, people are definitely interested in it and working on it. And people would like to see this in the real world.
At what point did you decide that you wanted to do like research instead of large scale naval architecture kind of projects? Because your internships were very naval architecture based kind of.
Yeah, so I was doing that research with the architecture or the archaeology department. I thought that's pretty cool. I like seeing my name on papers. But I was interested in actually doing a job or getting a job. And I kind of just ended up in research. I never really made the decision to do it. I applied for jobs after during my master's year, but I wasn't really getting offers that I was super excited about. So I was more excited about the research that I was doing than the job offers, and I just stayed with it. Any other questions?
How did you, how did you locate the internship in Barcelona?
So I did the international engineering minor, and with that minor, you're required to either study abroad or internship abroad for at least 6 weeks to complete the minor. We have an international engineering department here in the College of Engineering. And they're really good about helping you find opportunities and study abroad and internships. So I applied to a couple different programs. The internship program that I applied, the one that I got for Barcelona, it's actually like a placement program. So I applied to their program and then they placed me in an internship. I didn't actually have to look for it. In this program, it was pretty neat in that they placed you with a family to stay with. So you got the language part. You went to class one day a week, a Spanish class, and then you had your internship. So it was cultural exchange as well as an internship.
That's call. No questions? No, all right.
I've talked long enough that food arrived.
Look at that magic. Do you mind to eat first?
Yeah,
All
of course. I want to-
right, yeah, if you guys want it, why don't you just file from the back rather than everybody line up at once?
Let him go get food and then visit.
This one. Tomato sandwich.
You rock mine. I thought I was
That's my man.
Yes, I do.
Another shorty who rock climb.
Rub those out, right?
I haven't been recently.
You got soft hands, huh?
Yeah.
So remember during COVID, we had like really slow cars.
No, I was really hoping
All that shit.
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just started like, I was biking outside a lot more. And also it was a while inconvenient to like sign up for your specific time slot and all that.
Instead of just like showing.
Yeah, instead of just being like, today it's raining, so I'm gonna show up.
Western Union, I think it's just.
But I kind of stopped going as much. Chop roast and beef, mostly. I sometimes bouldering, but.
Two that they initially do.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. How long did it take you to build up to get the lead?
Every Little Caesars, the greater Ann Arbor.
Lead certified probably like 4 years after I started
Oh my
climbing.
gosh,
Only about like 2 years after I started.
international students, I'm telling you. Always stepping up.
I was going like 3 times a week for a while. Yeah, it was like a year and a half, 2 years about that where.
Oh, no. It's okay, yes,
Maybe I will. I'll do it again.
On lead, it was like an 11 plus.
Works out.
You show up to these.
No, the contract is you.
It's like if you don't do it frequently, then you get scared.
I like that.
Is it?
I think I've signed that maybe twice. I did, yeah. One time I forgot to sign it. He's like, oh yeah, I think.
Guess we'll just have to find out, right?
He cares very much.
That's true, that's
As we're
true.
showing up. Imagine getting into ground.
I'm from Illinois, so my life can't be the other day. It's a pretty boring place.
Yeah.
I did the same move. I was like, I don't like it. I'm not leaving. Yeah. You know. It's like they did it like 12 and then we have a States. In 20th grade. Still kicking. Yep. Yeah, been in school for 20 years.
Oh yeah, that was,
Oh my gosh, yeah. What have you done? Taking tests. Taking me a lot of tests. Still taking tests. Oh, how about that? That's they got the conversion. You don't like it? Oh, yeah, so it's on a diet. So if you
Pictures of young Ellie.
That was my whole goal. Those are like all of them. Those are all of them that exist.
I wonder if my mom has some stack of photos somewhere.
Yeah, so I was like, hey mom, do you have any pictures of me on the cruise? And she's like, yeah. And then she just kept sending me more. And then she's like, I think these are all the pictures we have of you.
Yeah. It feels good being old enough where like you get old photos of you and they're like they still kind of look old. Yeah. That's cool.
They're on film.
They're like, yeah, exactly. They're like on film and kind of blurry and you're like, yeah.
I know, right?
Like they're like fading. It's like I'm ancient.
Video talking.
I have to admit that took me by surprise. I'm currently working on my presentation. I'm gonna do it. Oh, you're in that boat. All right. I hate that with such like I feel very bad. This happened last year too, didn't it? The year before that? Yeah, 2019, you were still participating.
I was taking. Oh,
That's very exciting.
They also both advise everything understand how to use that room. So like,
Yeah, we really should. We should find some places to go. Including a front bar. Put that on my preview.
that's not a lot of fun. Places right now. Last minute with the only one that I wanted.
There's a bunch of stuff that
Class we're using to teach it.
these guys sometimes do a name bar crawl.
He's always too busy. They don't
They
take
get
it.
like something.
You downloaded it from my email.
Like, we're old enough for the ball bar crawl before
Yeah,
COVID.
that's what I was thinking. These guys have never been to a bar crawl. And not
When are you presenting?
name bar crawl.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, somebody's gonna reinstate that. Bruce and I being two of the most senior people in this, you know.
Like, that's the.
Like, you know.
You just get up there, you're like, yeah, Luke's actually gonna lead the sports.
We definitely set that up. I know it's one of the other grades, but somebody's got to pass the torch. They all left, you know. I mean, that's not some of the suck students. Maybe the salty sailor, whatever it is. The naughty sailor, Moon's grades, right? Yeah, I'd go to that one. So did you go to his office? Let's get some. I actually wore that shirt. Really? I didn't realize how.
Last I definitely wasn't as I was like,
I didn't think on it.
against Columbus.
Also like back then. You even know about that? I mean, you know about it. I mean, like a wonder like. Well, I mean, they weren't around for a year and a half, and most of like seniors play. Like, it's like freshmen aren't even around. Whereas you start to see them.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot before they come.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh yeah, so we should. He's not on my committee. Brian Arby's not on my committee.
Yeah.
We should go like hang out with him. Just like go down there. Talk to him about us.
What's about the broccoli?
Oh, I'll have you sign in here. I got it.
Then I still don't take the break.
No way.
You take breaks at work.
So these things have to live on.
It's just like R&D, like.
This week you probably move out, and I fly to LA.
I started the third course. I was at a wedding that weekend. The only other person I know that was at the wedding went to New
But then in June, this week right here. Out of the house.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like how the options for like, oh boy, I love the measure stuff. Yes, I have it. There are no things. I don't like measure stuff.
Victoria.
You're not asking for it. I got that for
You're not the one.
So when does Will start?
Oh.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joao Casares. So I'm Brazilian. That's why my name is so different. Joao, it's a Portuguese name for John. And Casares is my surname. It's a Hispanic name. So, as I said, I came from Brazil, from Rio de Janeiro city, also called the Wonderful City. It's located in the southeast corner of Brazil. It's a very important city in Brazil, not only economically, but also for tourism. So if you guys have a chance to go there, you would enjoy a lot. These pictures, this one and this one, I myself take this. So my path began in the Brazilian Naval Academy in 2008. So since that time, my relation to ships and boats never ended. So there are two ways to enter in Brazilian Naval Academy. It's from the Brazilian Naval High School or doing a national exam. That's that I did. It was really hard to do because it's just 50 spots for the whole country. And we have 1 million people in Brazil. So I studied 2 years to get in, and it really worked. So there are a lot of activities in Naval Academy, not only studying, but doing sea training during summer. So I had the opportunity to be on board of many types of naval vessels and do astronomical navigation, submarines, and also fly with some helicopters. So we do a lot of cool stuff in the summer. I also be part of the rowing team. So I competed in Rio. So Brazilian Naval Academy, it's located in Rio de Janeiro also. And this picture that I put here was in a competition in Argentina Naval Academy in a South America competition. So we take first place there. It was really fun to make this competition, to meet many people from South America in the same spot. All of them were midshipmen, so it was really fun. So I had many unique experiences in Naval Academy as some kind of marine training, and I participated in some regattas in tall ships. So the good point about that is that we, during the study, we don't need to decide what we're gonna do. So just in the end of the last year. So during this time, you can experience a lot of things that you wanted to do. So first we do that, and then we decide what path we wanna follow in the Navy. So in the last year, we experienced some leadership. I was commander of a platoon commander, and I also helped to guide some freshmen during summer training, astronomical navigation, for example. And I also helped duty officers during their job. So we do this as a way to put in practice something that we are going to do after graduating. So I also had many friends at that time. So since then, we meet every year. At that time, Naval Academy was only for men, but I think 8 years from now, 8 years ago, it opened for women, and now we have women on board, and naturally working the same way. So in 2011, I graduated in naval science, specialized in weapon systems. After that, it's a 4-year bachelor, and the 5th year, it's a training cruise that we do around the world. It's in Brazil. It's could translate to school ship Brazil. So it has the hull of a frigate, but its design inside has the arrangements for it to be school ship. So what we do there is we practice everything that we learn in theory during Naval Academy. And the cool thing about that is when we enter different types of ports, we do all the navigation, and it's really cool to exercise all of this. So it's over here, but we visit 18 countries, many cities, and it was one summer a year because we take summer in both hemispheres. So that was really nice to do. We take like many events in many cities, so it was really well planned to do that. So because the training that we do, it's when we are in the water, right, at sea. But when we are in town, we just need to have a little bit of fun, right? So we visit all these countries with all 200 friends. So it was a remarkable travel. We always call this golden travel. So after that, I was designed to be head of deck division in a hydrographic ship, Taurus. So that was the beginning of my engineering path, because just before Naval Academy, I started doing an engineering college. I was doing computer engineering, but I entered Naval Academy, and after that, the first 2 years of Naval Academy is like an engineering course. We have calculus, all the stuff. But after the end of the 2 years, it became more operational and less engineering. So when I stay in this ship, we were installing a multi-beam equipment to survey the bottom of sea, and we stay a long time in the dry dock. So that's why I had opportunity to be closer to engineering type of work, type of job. And I was also traveling too much because during this time, I did an internship with Chilean Navy in a tall ship called Esmeralda. And we visited some countries in the Caribbean Sea. So it's up in Mexico, Brazil, United States, and Curacao. Each country was represented with some officers that were doing internships. So the guy from Curacao was actually from Netherlands Navy. And the cool thing about being a tall ship is the different things that we do. So we got on this mast. You have an idea, it's 46 meters, 150 feet. So it's pretty high. And they stand there like stepping in the cord. Okay, and just handle it with some straps and working with hands to put in the sails. And every morning they do that, every morning. So it's a very, we have a lot of work load in a tall ship because, you know, it's supposed to be like that. So it was really fun. This is the ship they do the training cruise. It was not a frigate as we do, but it's this training cruise also participates in an international regatta. So this regatta, I was just deployed in the Caribbean, and then we changed to other internship officers to come with. So there's some sea traditions. The Ecuador crossing, I also did in my Brazilian ship, but this was something here because they really do a very huge party when they cross the equator. So it is traditional thing that they call like Neptune take over the ship command. And they do a lot of fun things with us. For example, they put a bag in our head and they pretend that they're going to throw us in a plank outside the ship. They just throw water on you, and you know, we have a huge party after that. Really fun. So this is the guy from Netherlands Navy, the guy from Mexico. This is me, and this lady here. It's something interesting that they do in Chilean Navy. If somewhat you get older and you miss the opportunity to be the Navy and do like military stuff, you can pay and go to the Naval Academy to do some military training. And then after that, you can do this travel. So to get this experience that you wanted to have, you know. So this lady was there to do this. So she participated in everything. So after that, so I was traveling too much and I got closer to engineering. I also had a young kid, so I decided to change some paths. So there's a time in our career that you can choose to do different stuff in the Navy, to be in submarine warfare, surface warfare. There are kind of Navy SEAL stuff, and there is engineering. But engineering, we need to do an exam. That is another exam that is made from the University of São Paulo. It is the biggest city that we have in Brazil. It's a huge city. And it's close to Rio, it's 6 hours driving. And two friends of mine and we passed this exam, and we did another bachelor in naval architecture and marine engineering. So it's 3 years because they use the credits of Naval Academy. So it was a good deal to be there 3 years to get another bachelor. And in the end of our undergraduate, we had to do a capstone project that was designed by Navy. It was a multi-purpose vessel, a assault ship, that we did the conceptual design. And in the last year, I also did a conceptual design of a a Katamaran. It was a new design for a company at that time. So I just did the conceptual design, then I went out and they kept doing the project. This Katamaran is supposed to be a touristic attraction, since this cabin goes up here and it goes navigating normally. But when you get to a reef or something that you want to see below the water, this cabin just goes below. So that was the design, this new design. And I did the first conceptual design of that, and they keep doing this. And the cool thing about that is that as a bachelor, I could participate in a design of something that was really built. Yeah. So from 2018 onwards, I'm still working as an engineering duty officer in the Brazilian Navy. So the cool thing about that is that I keep traveling, but now to do surveys. So I traveled to many cities in Brazil, in the north of Brazil, and there's some spots in Amazon that we have some river patrol vessels, and we can see difference in surveying, how they manage maintenance, how they have the logistic support to do that. So, and I'm working the Directorate of Naval Engineering, and my kind of work is to do survey, indications of repair, maintenance, computational analysis, risk analysis, and design. And the cool thing about that is each officer in the Directorate of Naval Engineering, we have our own, it works like a consulting company inside Navy for the operational sector. So if we have a kind of job, each officer get one job and do it from the survey to the report. So we get the whole process of engineering. We get inside tanks, we collect data, we travel to a broad place to inspect the ship. Then we collect data, bring it to the office. We do computational analysis, risk analysis, or design. And in the end, we give the report to our client. That's how it works. So, for example, this picture here shows a software that we are using. It's dedicated for maintenance. So it's predictive maintenance. So we have some corrosion models that predict when the failure will occur. And then we also use some risk analysis on that. For example, we found some spots of fatigue failure, and it also happened. I have a huge crack here. And this is the Directorate of Naval Engineering. We have a view, nice view. This photo was taken when I was leaving to get here in Michigan. So the way to get here is because every year we have a program to graduate degree in country or outside country, depends on the budget. So I had the good opportunity to be here. So I'm really grateful to speak with you right now. And I'm also a nature and also outdoor sport lover. So this picture was taken in Rio. This is Rio seen from sea. This is my kid. These are my wife and my kid. They are here with me. And my path has just begun, go blue. You have the QR code. Have questions? Yeah.
I think back like 2 or 3 slides on the where you're on the paddleboard. Where were you hiking?
Here?
Yeah.
Oh, that was I was going to Machu Picchu. It was in Peru. And this was like
That's the UP.
we survived an avalanche here. It was in 2000 and it was me and my cousin. We decided to do crazy stuff. Oh, let's go walking from Cusco to Machu Picchu. And it was in the summer. It was a bad decision because the mountain, I don't know if this mountain here, but another one's called South Contai. And it was the ice is going melted. And we had a huge avalanche there. It destroyed like many houses. Many people disappeared. And just 1 hour before that, we changed our path to a valley. So I think I saved my life for like of God, you know? Because, nobody survived who was like inside the valley here. It was just above.
Had enough mayonnaise for the survival life.
And all this path here was cracked. And then we stayed two or 3 days more in the Andes region. We find a house there, we stay there, and we got out there by helicopter. We were stuck there. It was like mud everywhere. It was a mudslide, huge mudslide. And yeah, and I'm here. Glad to be here. So yeah, this is in a city in Rio. We have some competitions, so something I like to do. Open water swimming. I'm not a triathlete, but I'm trying to do something. You know, I do this just before working, and I feel really nice to get on 6 a.m. I'm the water in the beach, and then I go to work. So it feels really nice. I can work much better, you know, doing this. Other question? No? So you guys can scan my QR code. Thank you.
Deal for episode.
WhatsApp.